Welcome to Rickshaw Scale Modelling. This is part 4 of Hobby Boss SAAB J32B Lansen. Scale is 1 to 48. In part 3 I dealt with the wings, so in part 4 I'm carrying on with the rear wings, but mostly concentrating on the landing gear. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. To begin with, I'm putting in some liquid gravity into the nose cone to add the weight. And then once it's in, add a little bit of tissue just to wad it all in, then a little bit of plasticine just to cap it all off. Now, as I've said before, if you're going to be using plasticine, be careful because that could corrupt the joint on the bond. I've not had it personally, but I've heard it happening, so just be aware of that if you're going to be using something like that. It's the oils in the plasticine that can eat away the actual bonded area. I did notice there was a tiny gap in the wing root area that meets for fuselage, only on one side. Perhaps I didn't position it properly, but it was an easy fix to fill up. It was only 1 or 2 millimeters wide. Next, I'm masking up the wing edges once more. This is going over the grey paint that I painted for the opposite hard end line. And the reason why I'm doing this now and I didn't do it before, I had to make sure that little airfoil thing was in place before I masked it up, because I wouldn't have been able to put on the part otherwise. I'm making up the tail rudder here, and it's just 2 parts placed together. So a simple assembly before fitting it into the actual tail. As you can see there, there's a couple of little guiding areas for you to place it in. There's no difficulty. I'm using Revel Aquacolor 99 aluminium to paint part of the cowl on the engine here. And once that was done, I was able to place in the rear wings. These went in perfectly. I didn't have to move them around or anything. Once I pressed them in firmly, they didn't move. Onto the landing gear now, and the main colour is Umbro 116 US dark green. I'm using Tamiya's X32 titanium silver, and this is for the working mechanism part of the wheel, so the brakes and so forth. And Revel Aquacolor 90 silver is for the mudguards on the front, for the front wheel, as well as for the pistons and that on the main wheel strut arm. Then it's back to 116 US dark green by Umbro for the hubcaps, and then it's light colour black rubber shoes tire black for the actual wheel itself. To make up the front landing gear, first of all, there's a tiny little part that goes on. I'm not sure what it's for. It looks like some sort of sensor or piston type thing. No idea what it's for, but it goes on just above the mudguard. Next is the wheel, and that's just 2 halves sandwiched together. There is little location points in it for it to sit well. So once the wheel's dry and able to place it on, there's a very small location point to sit on the axle for this. Not a lot of cement required, but just if you're doing this, just make sure it's fully dry before placing it into the kit. And lastly is the other section of the mudguard to close off the wheel. This fitted quite well. There was a little bit of gapping where the where it meets the other part of the mudguard. I opted not to fill it. It sort of gave it more of a wear and tear look. It wasn't a huge gap. Anyway, as you can see there, it was more of a seam line than a gap, to be fair. But it was there, and it still is there. But when I painted over it, I had a look at it, I thought, well, no, it doesn't really need to be filled that much. It's still visible, but I think it has to a working part. Now moving on to the main landing gear. The wheels are made up much the same way, 2 halves placed together. The hubcap is separate on one side, which has to be placed in. So just a little bit of cement in the actual wheel before placing it in. and then placing the wheel onto the strut. There is a left and right to this, so it's important that I paid attention to which wheel goes where. Back to the front landing gear, there's two little lights that have to be placed in. This is just a little stem with the clear bit of plastic on top. There is a little location point for it to fit into. It's very small, it's difficult to see, but once you know where it is going to, the actual assembly was not difficult. And they get placed in right at the front part of the bay area. I would recommend when you're doing this kit to make sure you put these in first before you actually put the wheels in. Just gives you a little bit more room to work in. Then I can place in the wheel. The connection points for this are really good. Sometimes these wheels, there's a small connection points and they don't really not big enough to hold the wheel for the weight of the model. But in this instance, it was quite fine. The supporting arm is going in next, so I'm just placing a little bit of cement, preparing that to go in. I like to put in the base of it first, then just push it onto the actual wheel. Sometimes when you're doing this though, it's not in the exact position that it should be in real life, but it's the easier way to do it, to try and get it to fit. Next we have the main landing gear, and these are placed in first, the actual landing gear. As you can see, this is where the left and right comes into play. The wheels face inwards and not outwards, which is a common mistake on some of these models I've noticed. I'm guilty of making it myself. For the covers, for the middle section, there's a little bracket that has to be placed on either side of the supporting beam here. I'm using Umbro 117 US light green for the main colour. I'm laying it down now so that I can fit the nose cone. So this is just going to be initially the first coat, but before I put on the nose cone. I'm not painting the whole plane at the moment, just a certain area. Next to go on is this bulbous thing here. I have no idea what it's for, but it sits right in between the landing gear. And now I can fit the nose cone, and that just pushed in beautifully. There was no gapping or anything. Once it was pushed in, it stayed there. And I'll put on the little bits and pieces onto the undercarriage now. So first of all, I'm placing on an aerofoil. There's a small component that goes onto the inner part of the covers here. Each side obviously has one, and they just fit into the bracket that I made up that goes on the supporting beam, and it just pushes in without any issues. And then it's the same with the opposite end of the covers. The covers for the front landing gear I've already placed on. I just forgot to film that they just went on without any problem. So now I'm going on to the air brakes, and I'm using a bit of white PVA glue here because they have a photo etch part component to it. I find photo etch parts are always difficult to handle and cement together. Your best option is super glue or PVA glue. PVA glue is the better agent to bond, but of course it takes a lot longer to dry, where super glue is instant, but the bond can be fragile. And this is where I'll bring part 4 to an end. I'm just going to be placing on the air brakes and the remaining little airfoils. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other videos? I'm sure there's something there that you may enjoy. If you haven't done so already, why don't you subscribe to the channel? Hit that notification bell if you do. That way you'll be kept up to date with all my builds, including this one, and of course any future builds. Hit that like button. Don't be afraid to leave a comment. I like hearing from you. And of course, don't forget to share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.